Okay, listeners, let's learn sumo. I'm Clayton. Welcome to the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe for regular pods where we bite-sized lessons about sumo and regular tournament updates. You might hear a bit of rain and thunder going on in the background. I am in subtropical Brisbane in Australia, so we are approaching summer, so a little bit of lightning around tonight. If you hear the odd boom, it sounds a little bit like a Garth Brooks song, something about thunder rolling. Anyway, let's move on. We're at the end of the November tournament, and we have a second-time winner, Kirishima, taking the Emperor's Cup on day 15 with a 13-2 record. That's pretty respectable for an Ozeki. We last spoke on day 12 with a group of Rishiki in the leading groups. Ozeki Kirishima was on 10 wins and 2 losses. Ozeki Takakeisho on 9-3. Ozeki Hoshoryu was struggling at 8-4 but got his Kachi Koshi. Sekiwake Kotonowaka was in the chasing group at 9-3. Sekiwake Daisho was 8-4, got his Kachi Koshi. Sekiwake Wakamoto Haru was in deep trouble and likely to have himself a Make Koshi, a losing record at 4-8. Other contenders coming into day 13 included Tami Fuji at 10-2, Ichi Yamamoto 9-3. The only real contenders. Ryuden was close behind there as well. There were some good bouts on day 13 where Kirishima was up against Daisho, got inside Daisho's arms and effectively neutralised the threshing machine that Daisho is. He just got in close enough, stopped the arms moving. Daisho showed once again his balance issues, a little bit of momentum too far forward, and he suffered another Hitaki Komi slap down to eat dirt in front of the Ozeki. I think that left him with about 3 Hitaki Komis this tournament alone. That gave Kirishima an 11-2 record with 2 days left and set up a bit of a grandstand finish. Daisho dropped to 8-5 despite getting his Kachi Koshi. His Ozeki run was likely coming to a finish at that point. The challenger, Atami Fuji, he was sitting on 10-2 as well. He met the big bear, Takayasu, who was sitting on 8-5, got his Kachi Koshi. Takayasu tried to get a march on at the tachiai, got into a pretty good position with an inside right grip. They're both fairly big guys. Atami Fuji struggled to get hold, but he was defending Takayasu's arms fairly well. Takayasu got Atami Fuji under pressure, going back to the bales, and then got himself a right grip on the mawashi of Atami Fuji. My view at the time was that Atami Fuji was probably in a bit of serious trouble there unless he could break that grip. He had Takayasu had a bit of momentum. Luckily, he did get it broken, and Takayasu changed to a bit of a body grip and got a hold and tried to pull Atami Fuji forward. And to Atami Fuji's credit, he kept his feet despite a few nervous moments. Atami Fuji's had his balance sorted even under some pressure this tournament. Some thrusting exchange, a little bit of Sapari going on, and a few directional changes saw Atami Fuji get the upper hand, stand Takayasu up for an Oshidashi open-handed push-out. A big comeback win and very important for the young man to stay with Kirishima for the Basho at 11-2 after that day. Other highlight matches day 13 included Ichi Yamamoto meeting the Shizuoka Pocket Rocket Midori Fuji, who got his Kachi Koshi on day 12. Officially at Hikiatoshi, but Midori Fuji taught the fast, pushing, skinny-legged Ichi Yamamoto a bit of patience lesson. He hankered him at the tachiai for his 9-4 record at the tournament. Happens occasionally. Ichi Yamamoto fell out of the race to finish day 13, 2 behind on 9 wins. Hoshoryu continued a bit of a forgettable tournament at that point, despite his Kachi Koshi on day 12, losing by Tsukiyatoshi to Takakeisho. So a bit of thrusting attack from Takakeisho off the tachiai, and Hoshoryu just got a bit too in front of his feet like Daisho for a Tsukiyatoshi diagonal body pull down. Takakeisho making his way to 9-4, Hoshoryu staying on 8-5. Kotonowaka fell to a fairly well-performing Ryuden, both finishing the day on 9-4. Ryuden denied Kotonowaka an effective right grip, leaving him with one strand on the Mawashi belt only, while Ryuden got himself a decent left Mawashi grip. That was a story of Kotonowaka, who was then bodily pushed out for a Yorakiri push-out loss to Ryuden, both sitting at 9-4. Wakamoto Haru got a great double grip on the former Ozeki Asanayama, but the power and strength of Asanayama saw the Sekiwake turned around on his hip. Look, they called it Yorakiri, but I think it looked a bit more like an Watanage. But either way, Wakamoto Haru went out. He is on Make Koshi on 409, and he is in deep trouble. Tobizaru just got a much bigger and slower Hokuseiho off balance with an arm pull, got him behind, and a Kuridashi, a rear push out, the wheels falling off for Hokuseiho. But both of those guys finished day 13 on 6 and 7. Still a chance of making Kachi Koshi with 2 days to go. Day 14 was a big matchup day with the JSA grading committee pitting our 2 leaders together for the final match on day 14. And this effectively ruled everyone else out of the tournament. So with our leaders on 11 wins apiece and the following group all on 9 wins, a matchup between Kirishima and Atami Fuji on day 14 meant that effectively no one in the 9-win group would get the chance to catch them up for a chance at a multi-way playoff on day 15. Historically, the grading match committee follows the winners for matchups, not looking for artificially created grandstand finishes. So those leading late in the tournament will be put together and the rest have not done enough to get there. So straight to it, last match of the day on day 14, Kirishima and Atami Fuji. Atami Fuji went through his entire routine of warm-up. There was the arm rolling, bit of swimming, that sort of thing. Anyway, a little bit of nerves as Atami Fuji got a mata going. He went past Kirishima, didn't touch him. So they had a reset. I think a little bit of nerves there. And Kirishima looked fairly calm, as he usually does. Anyway, touchy-eye happens. Kirishima got denied their double grip, but he got himself a rear grip with one strand on Atami Fuji's belt. It helped him wrap his left arm on a body grip and turn Atami around, just lifting him slightly. That minor loss of position gave Kirishima the ability to use his power and force Atami Fuji back and over the bales for a Yorakiri win. Bit easier than he would have thought, but demonstrating that power and technique work together. Atami Fuji for his wonderful tournament, a little bit more work on the mental game, a bit more strength to go with his size and bulk. But certainly his technique is fairly good. He got himself out of a couple of good scrapes this tournament. So this left the situation whereby on day 15, Atami Fuji had to win his match to get himself a chance, and Kirishima needed to lose his match on day 15 to force a playoff between them again for the Basho tournament. Other matches on day 14 saw Hoshoryu deal Midori Fuji another loss. Midori Fuji struggles against the Ozeki. He's yet to find a consistent method to beat Hoshoryu. If you go back all those matches in the last, say, 12 months, he's beaten him once, but he's really the only Rishiki who can seem to deal with Midori Fuji's double underarm grip and throw attempts, and he's got the strength to neutralise it. And Midori Fuji got himself a really good underarm right grip, but the key to Hoshoryu's win was that really good belt grip on the right off the touchy eye. It gave him leverage, and Midori Fuji just couldn't escape it. He couldn't defeat it. He tried hard to change tack and go for an inside grip, but Hoshoryu just used it to pull off a swinging Watanage throw, using the belt grip he already had that momentum, had the leverage. They both finished the day 14 on 9 and 5, both chasing double figures. More important for an Ozeki, as anything really under double figures for a tournament is seen as a bit of a disappointing tournament, but still got his Kachi Koshi. Good friends, Daisho and Takakeisho, the battle hamster. That bout was a bit of an outlier match for me. Daisho just Supari thrusted our battle hamster clean out with a series of thrusts. Taking it at its best, Takayasu just couldn't react to the threshing machine. It was all a bit too fast. Taking it at its worst, maybe a bit of a giveaway by Takakeisho. Either way, they both finished on day 14 on 9 and 5. Takakeisho just maybe looked like he ran out a bit of gas at the end of the tournament. Kotonowaka, working on getting an Ozeki run started for himself. He made it to double figures with a Tsukiyatoshi win over Shononumi. He struggled to get hold of Shononumi, but he was under a bit of pressure before he got a disengage and a thrust down on Shononumi near the bales. Bit lucky, not overly convincing if I look at it again. Wakamoto Haru, he got his vital fifth win by Yorikiri over Nishikigi. He needs that win and every win he could get towards the end of the tournament, with 5 wins out of the 14 days at that point. Not really good. So, Ura, Tobizaru, Hokuseiho, Sodonumi and Oho all got 7 wins on day 14. They were all chasing Kachi Koshi on day 15. Ura's win over Gonoyama left Ura getting up with a bit of a smile. He's really a rubber band man, our Ura, as Gonoyama went some great Nodowa neck thrusts, leaving Ura, yet again, looking at the roof. Anyway, good belt grip and a decent Yorikiri push-out. Of course, Ura had to make a show of it as he went down and he's flying down on his belly as Gonoyama went flinging out of the ring into the side alley. They both were looking for Kachi Koshi on day 15. Ichi Yamamoto, he notched up his double figures with a Hataki Komi win on Ryuden. Some pretty good thrusting to keep Ryuden off balance. Went for his belt. Ryuden went for his belt, and then Ichi got a good double-handed grip on an off-balance Ryuden on in the back of his head to finish the job, and a bit of a shove over the bail. So he grabbed him on the back of the head, got him off balance. That put Ichi Yamamoto on 10 wins, Ryuden on 9, Day 15, Senshiraku Day. Senshiraku just really means the final performance. It's not really a sumo term, but it is used in theatre and sports, and it usually describes the final day, the final match, or the final performance of that day. So, final day, Senshiraku had Atami Fuji needing to beat Sekiwake Kotonowaka to be in with a chance for a playoff, and that was only if Kirishima lost on the final day to Takakeisho, who he was matched up with. Alas, Atami Fuji went in low. He committed to a push as Kotonowaka met him at the tachiai and then grabbed an arm for a relatively simple Hikiyatoshi pull-down win. Kotonowaka ends a good tournament on 11-4, as does Atami Fuji, but it really just handed the basho to Kirishima right at that point. Our man Kirishima was sitting on the side of the ring looking incredibly calm. He did say in the interview afterwards that he was more focused on his match. He knew he had the job wasn't finished at that point, and he needed to try and beat his fellow Ozeki Takakeisho. So they met in that final bout. Takakeisho had a bit of a faltering mutter, but it seemed like he lost a bit of go forward at the end. Dogged by a bit of a bad neck injury, a recurring injury before the tournament started. Just seemed like he had no push left. Anyway, it was a pretty soft meeting if you watch the replay at the tachiai. Takakeisho, he tried for a push, but he had a bit of an air swing in golf terms as Kirishima did a sidestep, leaving the big battle hamster Ozeki on his front on the clay. A fairly poor 9-6, if the truth be told, effectively ending his rope run for Yokozuna promotion. It put Kirishima pretty much in favourite for a rope run in January after his 2 tournaments this year, his second being the first win as an Ozeki. So if he wins in January, I would think that they would look very closely at him for promotion to Yokozuna. From his poise, his strength, his balance, his technique, I'd think he'd be more likely to be promoted to Yokozuna before Takakeisho. Takakeisho's really struggled to break into the top rank for a few years now. He's gone kataban as an Ozeki, at risk of being demoted something like 7 or 8 times, and seemingly he's incapable of putting 2 tournaments in a row together. Injury seems to get in his way. Anyway, Takakeisho losing to Meisei, Gonoyama, and Sanayama. They'll probably be on fast replay for him. He had a Meisei in trouble against the Bales early in the tournament, but he gave him a let-off and suffered a Yorikiri through a bit of overcommitment and a loss of balance, and that gave Meisei that win. He simply got overpowered and outplayed by Gonoyama this time, as a fairly untimely side move made him vulnerable, and that gave Gonoyama that win. Sanayama, the former Ozeki, he's got plenty of power, and he demonstrated that. Takakeisho, he tried hard to keep the thrusting up and Sanayama off his belt, but once they grappled, Sanayama got his strength and used it to overpower Takakeisho for a Shitatanage belt throw, which hurled them both out of the ring. Takakeisho landing first. Big guys landing that hard, it never looks good. Hoshoryu, he's certainly got some improving to do. He finished on 10-5. His losses to Takayasu, Nishikigi, Tamifuji, they'll be the ones that hurt him the most. Tamifuji just caught his arm from a bit of a lock throw, perhaps his biggest tactical mistake this tournament, and he knew it. He got up smiling, and a very wry smile, knowing he'd been beaten in his head at getting his arm taken in that grab. Daisho, he finished his Ozeki run effectively with a 9-6. Look, there, in theory, he could possibly run a 15 or a 14 tournament in January. I don't see that happening given his style. Look, again, he got overcommitted at times and he fell to, like I said earlier, 3 Hitakikomi thrust downs and 1 Karasukashi pull down. It was probably a bit of an overcommitment as well. His forceful thrusting leaves him very forward, very committed to creating that power, and ultimately leaves him open to that thrust down. Kitashima showed that when he got up in his face. It's also a viable method to get Daisho to overcommit as he tries to get his thrusting going. Look, not sure how he's going to come to terms with that in his technique, but in the end, he finished on 60 wins for 2023 with 4 double-digit wins. That is not a bad record. It's one of the top records of the Rashiki going around, certainly without too much injury this year. I think he just needs to fix a few things if he wants to progress, to get himself to 13, 14 wins for a Basho win and get himself up to Ozeki. 60 wins, I think, gets him either probably second, I think, for the tournament behind Kitashima for the year, I think. I'd have to check that stat. Kotonowaka, or soon to be Kotozakura, his grandfather Shikona, for 2024. 11 wins, probably should have been in contention without his losses to Ura, Shodai and Ryuden. His loss to Ozeki Kitashima is a little bit understandable, but Shodai had a pretty miserable tournament in front of his home crowd, so he shouldn't have lost to him. A moment where Shodai got Kotonowaka just slightly more upright in the wrestle and got him Yorakiri. Zeki run still on the cards for Kotonowaka. His January could still see him get there in the end. Of awful tournaments, Wakamoto Haru must rate highly. This is only his second Make Koshi since coming into Makuuchi division, the top division. Nothing seemed to work for him. He was a bit late on the grip, ineffective, and he pretty much lost to all of the Senyaku ranks except Daisho. Look, he stemmed the damage bit with 2 wins on the final 2 days to get himself a 6-9, but his demotion to Komusubi and possibly even down to Megashira is pretty much assured. It's just a matter of how mean the committee seemed to be. I thought he was a bit unlucky against Hoshoryu, at least not to get a mono E to look at. They both went down very hard outside the ring, and I watched the replay again today and I still couldn't quite pick it. The Gyoji pointed the gunbai at Hoshoryu's end and there was no mono E, so it's in the record books that Hoshoryu won that. Wakamoto Haru, he got quite a heavy hit on the head there, so he followed up with another 3 losses in the following days, and I think that might have something to do with it. His loss to Kitashima was simply a result of Kitashima getting in lower, getting a grip and lifting and putting Wakamoto Haru off balance. It just didn't work for him. A little bit desperation and a bit too much momentum allowed Takakeisho to step aside for an easy push-out. So that left him in a pretty poor position. 6-9 will guarantee he's leaving Sekiwake. 2 Komusubi, they also had awful tournaments. Hokutofuji finishing his miserable November at 5-10. Again, nothing seemed to work for him. Hokutofuji, look, he's got good balance, he's got good push, but a few Hatakikomis, a few Slipatoshis. He really showed he just didn't have the pace or thrust this tournament. Abe similarly finished with a dismal 6-9 to enjoy his demotion come January. One of Hokutofuji's only wins this tournament came from an Oshidashi over Abe. Asanayama, our former Ozeki, he missed the first 7 days with a calf injury. To be honest, it sounded like a much worse calf injury than someone coming back on day 8. But he returned to be beaten by Kirishima, but I was fairly impressed by Asanayama throughout the tournament. He seemed to have some pretty good push for the rest of the tournament. He did get beaten by Kirishima, Daisho, Hoshoryu, and even a hapless Hokutofuji, but he did notch up a win against Takakeisho on day 8. He beat Wakamoto Haru as well, who was a bit of an easy beat this tournament. Our challenger, Atami Fuji, he had an excellent tournament again, taking the Fighting Spirit prize for the Basho and fighting off for the Basho, being in contention for the second tournament in a row. He certainly gained a lot of fans. He gets a good cheer. It's a pretty good experience for him. He is still only about 21, I believe. Of his technique, look, his only real weaknesses, look, that's a bit hard to point at this point. He uses a lot of his bulk to go forward. Miyagiru, Mitakayumi, Kimbozan, they're all big push-outs. Kota Echo got pushed out for him. Where else? Yeah, Shonanumi, a big bulky push-out. So literally, he does use his bulk to his advantage. His losses were Suddenumi. He just couldn't get his grip. Got a left only, and Suddenumi had both the strength and used it to push Atami Fuji out. Hiradumi just he impressed this tournament a little bit. Very active sumo. He got a grip and kept Atami Fuji under backwards pressure over the bales. And I think I saw an interview at one point where Atami Fuji acknowledges that his reversing sumo needs a lot of work. He's a little bit too easy to get moving backwards, and he's got nothing to come forward there. Kota Nawaka, his loss on the last day, that was just a little bit too much of an overcommitment there. Maybe a little bit of nerves, trying a bit too hard. Anyway, Ura at Magashira 1 is looking for Komusubi. He gets his Kachi Koshi 8 and 7. We're not really sure how Ura got his Kachi Koshi after only winning 2 matches in the first 8 days. It was a tough first week against all the Sanyaku ranks. He really only beat Meisei, and he did beat Kota Nawaka to show for it, but they're always positive, high-energy matches. He backed it up in the second week, a little bit of an easier week to get his 8 and 7. Ryuden finished with double figures, 10 and 5, but to be honest, he only faced Kota Nawaka in the Sanyaku ranks. His next Basho will be a bit more of a test as he goes up from Magashira 10, possibly to 6 or 5. I haven't really studied the Banzuke yet to have a look at where he might end up. Ichi Yamamoto, 11 and 4, really good tournament for him. He was in contention. Couple of unfortunate losses. That one to Midori Fuji, kind of the henker from Midori Fuji probably hurt him the most. That put him out of the running late in the tournament. A little skinny leg pusher, a little bit more all-round without the bulk. He had a good return tournament to Mikuchi. Last time he was here is at Magashira 8. But bear in mind, he only faced Daisho in the Sanyaku rank, so expect a harder go next time for him. Midori Fuji, 9 and 6, backed up his September tournament with another good tournament here. There's a couple of really good fights, always entertaining, like Ura, just really entertaining fights to watch. I'll go into the Hokuseiho one later, but a couple of losses there. The Daisho one, he just got a double thrust onto his behind. And same with Takanosho. He got a similar push from Takanosho, and Takanosho landed just a moment before Midori landed on his behind as well. So being a smaller guy, he can be open to that. The epic Hokuseiho 6-minute 40-second bout where he lost Watanabe but won a massive fans. The fight broken up by a Mizu Iri, a water break we talked about. That's the first time in 8 years. The last time was when our Yokozuna Terunofuji had a water break 8 years ago. A most unusual thing to see, but always good. It's been an interesting year with a few unusual things. A Kesho, a Mawashi break as well, a Mata there with, again, with Midori Fuji beating Kirishima. So, where did the others finish? Well, Churanumi, he got his 9 and 6. Hiradumi, he got his 9 and 6. Very happy for that. He's tried hard. Again, Hiradumi in front of his home crowd, I think, as well. So he got a fair bit of support. Our Make Koshi, Abi at Komusubi, he goes down. Tobizaru, unfortunately, got himself a Make Koshi at 7 and 8. Shodai, 6 and 9. Nishikigi and Hokuseiho got 7 and 8 apiece. Oh, guys, going back to Juryo, look, Kitanowaka 5-10, definitely going back. Tomokaze 7-8, he's likely to go back. Roga 5-10, he's definitely going back to Juryo. Nishiki Fuji 6-9, won't save him on the back of a very low rank there. Kota Echo, I would suspect, might be in trouble as well, given he went out injured, and will finish with a Make Koshi as well. Who had a pig of a tournament? Well, Anosho had a pig of a tournament at 3-12, followed closely by Meisei at 4-11. Both those guys just couldn't get themselves together. It didn't seem to work for them. Comeback, I would say Ura to get his Kachi Koshi. That was a pretty good comeback. Match of the tournament. Look, for me, I went back and watched the full replay, the full 6 minutes 40 seconds of Midori Fuji and Hokuseiho. The sheer effort required by Midori Fuji, and the I think he tried something like 20 different moves on Hokuseiho, who tried two moves, one which half-hearted and the second one to win the match. Look, credit to both of them. They were both fairly washed at the end of that. They were covered in sweat, and Midori Fuji, as you saw at the end of the tournament, laying on his back, he was done for all money after that one. So for him to come back and get 9-6 after that epic fight, good work for him. Down in Jonidan, we follow young Najima, who got himself a Kachi Koshi in September. Well, unfortunately, he finished with a Make Koshi on 3-4, so the damage won't be too bad for him. He'll slip from, I think he's Jonidan 40 or 43 or something. He'll probably slip down to 50 maybe. And so Wakataka Kage, who's been out with an ACL and had that fixed up, he's been in Makushita. He finished, luckily, with his Kachi Koshi after a pretty poor start, losing that first one. He finished Makushita 6 is his rank there. He finished with a 5-2. Look, he might be lucky enough to get a promotion to Juryo with that. There's probably 5 or 6 spots open for demotions from Juryo down to Makushita. And at 6, he's a chance of going up, so we'll keep an eye out for that on the Bunsuke come early January. Well, that's it for the November tournament. That is the last tournament for the year before we kick off again. I think around the 14th of January. I will be overseas for about a month, so I'll try and catch up with the Bunsuke and a bit of a preview before the tournament starts while I'm somewhere in Thailand, I believe, at that point. So I look forward to talk to you then. We might try and fit an episode or two lesson in before that time, before I nick off to overseas for my summer holiday, as we are in the Southern Hemisphere in Australia. I hope all of you listening in the Northern Hemisphere in USA and Canada and England are not getting too cold at this point, and we'll talk again come the new tournament. Hakiwa listeners, thanks for joining me. Let's Learn Sumo.